Hey everybody, welcome back. You made it to Module 2, so you've completed the first 2 weeks of the course. I want to say I really enjoyed reading your introductions and seeing you guys interact with each other. I love the fact that we have such a variety of students in this course, from adult students returning to school to high school students and traditional college students and students from DMAC, students outside of DMAC. That really makes for an interesting class, and it makes for interesting reading for me as I get to look at your work. And as you'll see this week a little bit, in the future we will be interacting a little bit more. So I'm glad that you guys had that opportunity to kind of touch base. So there's a lot to go over during this module for the next 2 weeks. This is when you're getting your information on your first big essay, so essay 1, which is a rhetorical analysis. So before we get into the details of the essay, this week's a little bit different than, this module is a little bit different than the last, in that you're kind of preparing to write something this time. So the things that are going to be due this week, you're going to need to do readings from the book, several chapters. And again, you can spread those out over these next 2 weeks. That's going to be up to you. There's going to be an opportunity for you to review your MLA resources. I've attached a couple here. You are always welcome to contact the DMAC library for resources, and I highly recommend the online writing lab. The assumption with Comp 2 is that since you have completed Comp 1, you're fairly familiar with MLA. So we don't do a lot of direct instruction on that, but again, I've shared a bunch of resources with you, and I highly recommend that you reach out either to a tutor or to me if you have questions. So, and one thing that's really important as we go forward is making sure that your paper is in MLA format. And when you submit something, unless it specifically says do it in the dialog box here, I'm going to want everything to be a Word document attached. That way there's no question about formatting. I see what you put in there pretty accurately. And again, you want to make sure that you're doing those basics of MLA formatting for your papers, meaning you have in the top left-hand corner, you have your name, my name, the class, and the date. There should be a title on all of your papers, and the paper should be in 12-point font, MLA, double-spaced, all that good stuff. So, and your works cited page, of course, would be in MLA format as well, and it is a separate page at the end of your paper. But it is part of your paper. Make sure, I really caution against students saving like the text of their paper in one document and then the works cited in another, because I guarantee at some point somebody's going to forget to print one and only print the other. So if this is a 4-page paper, which it is, your works cited would be page 5. So just kind of have that in mind. After you do your readings, and in a minute I'm going to go over the details of the essay, you're going to make yourself familiar with the essay, or at least in the midst of doing your readings, you may want to spread those out a little bit. There are a couple of different essays that you have the chance to read, and they're from your text. One is Safe Spaces, Brave Spaces by Palfrey, Thick of Tongue by McWhorter, Why Funny Animal Videos Are Good for You by Heath. I'm already intrigued. Featuring Disabled Women in Advertisements, The Commodification of Diversity, Houston. And What Happens When Toxic Office Behavior Moves Online During Working from Home, from We. So those are your options. You can look through those, see whatever seems most interesting to you. You'll need to read that. And then, again, with the context of this paper that we're going to go over in a hot second in mind, I want you to find 3 sources that help you with your analysis. So let's go ahead and pop into the essay itself. So as you're looking through this later, you're going to see the rhetorical analysis paper. Notice I've already made some notes on it for myself. And the idea, again, is to take one of those essays and you want to consider how and why a specific written text works or does not work rhetorically. You'll be using the homework readings from the text along with the class resources and discussions about rhetoric and rhetorical analysis, ethos, pathos, and logos, and there are resources discussing that in your folder as you write your paper. Your analysis should focus on the specific argumentative strategies or elements that the author uses. Your paper should focus on analyzing the text and evaluating its use of rhetoric, not on summarizing or presenting your own personal response to the text topic or rhetorical strategy. Now, as you'll see in the description as we go further, you want to summarize the text a little, but that is not the purpose. It's just enough to let your reader know what you're talking about, okay? And again, there will be other essays where I want your response and your feedback on it, but this is not your experience. This is about you analyzing this essay in as a rhetorical piece. And one of the most important things that there are three important elements that you're going to want to keep in mind as you do that. The first is context. Context is the where, when, and how this was written. So for instance, if this is a paper on women's rights or women in the workplace, that would be a very different paper if it was written in 1950 versus 1999 or 2020. Okay, so this is definitely, it's important to know the environment historically and societally in which a piece was written. So just kind of the time period and what was going on at the time. Another thing is the audience. You want to know, no one writes a piece like this without hoping there's someone who's going to read it. And usually it would be, it could be multiple audiences. If I'm writing about the importance of diversity training in schools, I'm going to want to talk to, my audience would probably be administrators and faculty. That way they understood. But at the same time, students could understand, oh, well, this is why they want us to do this so much. So, so these are just things to keep in mind. Who is your audience? Who do you think the author really hoped they would connect with in this piece? And last is the purpose. This is where it goes very much again to what the assignment details are. If the purpose of the paper is to provide rhetorical analysis and it only provides summary, then you are not analyzing that and doing what you need. And at the same time, your author that you're reading, if you think that their purpose, well, I guess as you read it, you'll look at, what do you think was their purpose? Do they want us to be more cognizant of the way that, and again, in one of them, disabled women are dealt with and treated in advertisements? One of them talks about workspaces, clearly, or toxic workspaces. Clearly, this person has a message to convey about that. So be thinking about what their purpose is in their paper and whether they achieved that purpose or not, in your opinion and in the opinion of the sources that you pick up to support your essay. So exactly that. You have to have 3 sources for your essay. I highly recommend staying in the databases or looking for other scholarly research. And the nice thing about databases too is you can pull that citation right out of there and stick it in your works cited page, and that's one step you don't have to do. Plus, in the databases, you know that you're getting quality sources that have been vetted a little bit at least. So one of the assignments that you will need to turn in at the end of this 2-week period is just a short annotated bibliography, which simply means here's the citation for the source number 1 that I'm using. Here's a quick summary of it and how I'm going to use it. Here's another one. Here's another quick summary. So, and you only have to do those for 3. So the details for those are listed in this week's folder, or this module's folder, excuse me. Just a couple of last minute things before we go further with the essay. And just to know, so the essay will not be due during this module. This module is your pre-writing phase for your essay. So my hope would be you read the essay, you read up on rhetorical analysis, you do your research, find your 3 sources, and 3 sources should be a breeze. Many of our essays in Comp 2 will end up having more than that. So 3 is kind of a nice way to ease you into it a little bit. And then basically start outlining, start planning what you're going to do when you start writing. Now, the following module, module 3, weeks 5 and 6, at that time, during you will have 3 main milestones, and they will come that your draft will be due February 12th. We will do a peer edit activity. I haven't decided yet whether I'll do that through discussion board or through pairing you up individually with other students. I think that tends to work best, because if we throw it all on a discussion board, it's possible someone may not pick your paper to edit. And I want to make sure that everybody does that. And as you'll hear me talk more about next module, during the peer edit, it is extremely important that if you are assigned a partner and you edit and they edit your paper, you need to edit their paper too. That's the only thing that makes me hesitant about peer editing, is because I know as a student, I've submitted a paper to someone, they've submitted it to me, they've edited my paper, or I've edited their paper like crazy and then never got something back. And that's really unfortunate, because they're going to benefit from your edit. You're not going to get that same benefit. I will say this, at any point in your writing process, whether it's you're drafting, you haven't got your paper fully ready yet, or if you are drafting it, you get feedback and you still feel like you need some more feedback, that is a wonderful time to reach out to DMAC's online writing lab. And of course, you can always reach out to me, but you may get a time. There are often tutors that are just sitting waiting for students to log on to the online writing lab. So please make sure that you use the resources that are out there. Post-COVID, so many things have gone online, which can be kind of bad, but in some ways it's kind of good, because there's so many resources that we didn't have 3 years ago. So I really encourage you to use those. The last thing I'll remind you about is really being sure that you're reading directions carefully and looking at submission guidelines. If it says it needs to be 4 pages, make sure it's 4 pages. If it says it needs to be an MLA, make sure it's an MLA. If it says that it needs to be attached as a Word document, please make sure that it is. All of these things I try to make very, very clear what the expectations are, but if it's ever confusing, or if I mention something in the module and you're like, I can't find that, let me know, because every once in a while, and this has happened already once in this class, there's something that I can see on my side, but it turns out it's not released for you to see. So a nudge in that direction at any time is highly appreciated. So, and again, if you have any questions at all, or anything, if you feel like you need another resource or some more help, please reach out. So far, so good. I think we're doing a great job so far. Oh, and at the end, there is an optional kind of a summary on like how the course is going so far at the end of the week. I know you guys have a lot to do, but if you do have time, I'd appreciate any feedback I can get so far. And please, like I said, contact me if you have any questions, and don't forget to use those resources you have, either the DMAC library, DMAC writing lab, or the other tutoring services that we have available. So that's all I have for you for this week. And let me know if you have questions, and I look forward to reading your first essays.